YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Warhammer 2. And there's like this whole Gelt meta build that's going on right now. I've heard that Turin, I haven't gotten to go check his videos. I need to go check it. Maybe it came from him, because I don't know. I've heard people saying he was into it. So I get a ton of Balthasar Gelt with a lot of Outriders as like a very popular build. And I actually hit it twice in a row tonight. The first time I lost, and I thought I had saved the replay, I didn't. I wanted to show you all one of each, like why I lost to it, and then how things, obviously this is how things went better against it. So let me explain how I lost to it. I played the High Elves as well. I didn't bring, in my opinion, the key against this Gelt build is going to be the, not the Spearmen, sorry, these Swordmasters of Hoeth. The reason I say that is because typically with a Gelt build, they're going to have to pour some money into cavalry, you know, skirmisher cavalry, whatever it is that they think they need to make the Gelt build successful. And the Empire really can't handle Swordmasters as Hoeth. They can if they use the right stuff, if they have the right composition, but I don't think this Gelt build is particularly well suited to taking down the Swordmasters of Hoeth. Now, there's different versions of the Gelt build, but if there's a few great swords, if you have a Lore of Life mage, you can heal the Swordmasters as soon as they get into combat, and these guys will absolutely own great swords. And then Outriders, of course, their biggest weakness is missile infantry, which the High Elves have in droves. So I've brought them in droves, 6 archers, standard archers, which means that I have a massive ranged advantage. So again, unless the Empire went with like a cannon-focused build, which they could, quite honestly probably should, with Gelt, because the cannons would be good at the like keeping the dragon at a standoff distance, and they could also be used to bombard my infantry and force me forward. In this case, my opponent's gone with cheap infantry and a crap load of skirmish cavalry, several Outriders, a couple with grenade launchers, a couple of Reichsguard, and a Demigryph Knights with halberd. So he has a lot of mobile forces, and his idea is that the infantry line's a distraction, and whenever I pushed forward, he started pulling back, and I'm like, well, 2 can play at that game. And he wasn't being rude or anything. It's just like he wanted me to come forward so he could get all these cavalry on my flank. But yeah, that was, in this case, obvious. I'm not going to take that bait. The strength of my build here is to maintain the formation and use my ranged advantage because my opponent has no way to force me forward. So again, there's other Empire builds that can punish this quite badly. But this Empire build that he has here is not that build. So immediately I start trying to shoot at his Outriders, and he's clearly using them thinking that he can just bait my ammunition. So at long range, fast cavalry like Outriders are swift to turn and stuff like that, and they can bait your ammunition. So when you see an opponent doing that, just turn off fire at will and be patient. So my opponent's going to probe my defenses here, see how much I'm paying attention, see if he has any easy access to my archers. So I'm going to go ahead and let him know, yep, I'm paying attention. So, unfortunately, my formation has to be quite static here, and I'm just going to have to be patient and play my cards right. If I move forward and get hasty and open up a hole in the defenses, then the very mobile Empire player can punish me for it. He does have units to potentially deal with the Swordmasters. It's his grenade launcher cav. That's what he needs. So Gelt is going to start using some of his magic, and this bombardment is actually quite good. You saw it did tremendous damage to my archers. Didn't kill a lot of unit models, but it hurt them so bad that if they get into combat, they're going to start losing a lot of unit models pretty quickly. So again, he's going to come probe the defenses a little. I've been wanting to use a breath attack on my dragons, but he's very aware of my movements, so getting hasty with a breath attack isn't going to do me any good. But see here where I've gotten patient and really baited him in where he thinks I'm not going to do anything? And I waited until he couldn't turn, and I just nuked a unit of Outriders. So that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bait him in, and I'm going to play, you know, 2 can play the game, right? He's trying to bait me, so I'll bait him back. give him a bait and switch. My Lord was too tempting of a target there, and he paid the price, losing a large number of Outriders. So that's some armor piercing and some skirmishing that he really needs if he's going to be successful. But again, I've kind of got the hard counter at the moment to his build in the sense that all these missile infantry are going to really keep his missile cavalry. But that is a lot of blood considering he took like a single volley from those Outriders. Seems like they need to kind of like tone the blood stuff a little. So again, I'm not firing at will. I'm going to wait for my opponent to get fully in here. And I'm not sure why he's doing this. After what happened last time, he's got to know what I'm planning. But see, I kind of waited for the right moment there, and again, just nuked an Outrider. He may be losing a little bit of patience or just, you know, made a mistake here. There, another bombardment from Gelt, and it is brutal. I mean, that bombardment spell is fantastic versus bunched up infantry. I don't know if it's good against armored units, but it is really good against archers, and he's using it well. He hasn't gotten a lot of kills, but he's caused a tremendous amount of hit point damage on these two units. So, I mean, it's almost half their hit points. But, fortunately, I've been able to trade for a couple of Outriders hereabouts. And again, I have a mage, I can heal, but I'm not going to heal in this case. I'm going to wait and then, you know, maybe heal something like this Swordmasters, which is a bit higher value target. Again, look at this, he's just really going to go to town on me. I'm going to try and move a little this time, but I still take some damage, because that's a pretty wide strike area. So, a little less damage there, but still damage. He's got his grenade launcher cav that are kind of making some moves on the flanks. Again, I'm letting him get close to me. I want him to get close. I want him to engage. I need him to get up here, and then all I got to do is keep his cavalry out of my archers. And the key to the cavalry is delaying them with spears, killing them with dragon. He does have the Demigryph Knight with halberds, but he's going to have to bring it into a lot of spears if he wants to take out my dragon. So here he's going to try and create a blob and then use his grenade launcher cav, but again, when the grenade launcher cav gets too close, it's going to be forced out. He saw this as an opening, and it is an opening. But he charged at my Swordmasters, I think? Maybe? Rather than going after my archers, which were actually exposed there, so that was a mistake. I should have already moved these spearmen, because I don't have a cavalry flank from this flank, threat from this flank, so I should be pushing my spearmen this way, and I'm not. Again, the bombardments continue. Gelt has now racked up 26 kills. I can see why more people use Balthasar these days. He is good. I've used him a couple times recently, too. I mean, he's good. He's definitely got his uses. So we pushed out one unit of Reichsguard, and again, we have an opening here. He's going to take it. I've got a somewhat weak unit. I'm going to give a little healing here, mostly to heal the Swordmasters, because they had only lost one unit, and I wanted to heal them before we lost more units, and I couldn't resurrect them, right? So Gelt gets knocked out. He parked over the top of my archers, and I don't know why, but Creative Assembly thinks a metal man doesn't deserve more than 50 armor, and so Gelt just gets absolutely ruined by missiles. And I mean ruined. He's gone. So that's the end of Gelt, which means my opponent has lost a key part of his army. See here, I'm going to fall back, and I'm going to create a defensive formation around my archers, just like this. And my opponent has to get through my dragon to get to my archers. And then my archers can reposition. And over here, where he's hoping to kill my Swordmasters with grenade launchers, they're now getting shot down. His Demigryph Knights, a bunch of units mixed in over here, so I've got a very favorable engagement. The dragon chases off the Reichsguard. Reichsguard are no match for the dragon. And his swordsmen, of course, die in droves to my Swordmasters of Hoeth. Already 61 kills, and they've barely been touched. So at this point, I've definitely got things where I want them. So again, my archers moved back into the defensive position here, which means I can only be attacked from this direction. And I can protect that spot with the spears, and then my dragon. And the Swordmasters are now going to lend me quite a bit of armor piercing to help against this cavalry, potentially, as well. And the loss of Gelt was kind of crushing here. And another reason why I brought this army in particular is that Gelt has Final Transmutation, which can really devastate your lord, but it costs a tremendous amount of magic at about 28. Final Transmutation is going to be best against a faction that cannot field a mage that can heal. So I brought Regrowth, because if Gelt used Final Transmutation for a cheaper cost than his spell, I can undo most of his spell for a cheaper cost of magic. So I do think that Gelt was smarter, my opponent was smarter to use Gelt's bombard abilities here than the Final Transmutation, because in the end it really wouldn't have done him any good. I had a counter pick to it, and I was sitting on the magic ready to do it. So in this instance, I was able to counter the one of the Gelt meta armies. I'm sure there's multiple. It's a good army. I think in certain situations, Gelt can be extremely effective. Greenskins lords can't heal. Chaos lords can't heal. Beastmen. I can think of a bunch of different lords that can't heal. And Gelt's Final Transmutation, you know, especially if there's a group of like single unit model heroes, like Gorbols or other stuff that's all in one area, Gelt is going to do extremely well versus that. That'll use up most of his magic, though. It's going to use up a ton of magic. But he's flexible. He's got the bombardment spells that are extremely effective. And he's also got other things that he can use, like Golden Hounds isn't bad if it's used in the right, like if you create a blob and then Golden Hound the blob, it can cause tremendous damage. His Plague of Rust can take down the armor of key enemy units. Now, I do think Plague of Rust, and I don't know, maybe some people think, do you all think it would make Gelt OP or Lure of Metal. I mean, I think it would make Lure of Metal better if Plague of Rust had an area of effect, and then you overcasted it for a bigger area of effect and the minus 60 armor. Like, I really think that would be useful, because otherwise, Lure of Metal's good. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad, but it's not great. And the other thing that really needs to happen is they really need to up Gelt's armor to about 70, 80 at least, if he's going to really be, you know, any... He's good. Again, he's good. He's not bad. I just think that they might ought to consider that. Hey, this was another fight, too, where I had lost a match as Gelt against the Dawi, and I wanted to get some revenge, and this was the player who I played against. He was a viewer as well. Again, the first time I played this, a lot of your losses in Total War Warhammer and other Total War games for that matter come from picking the wrong army. And the first time I went with a ton of missiles, and I don't know why, against the dwarves, because they have good missiles in return, and it cost me the game. My opponent had a bunch of rangers, and he did a good job with them. In this battle, I was like, all right, if he wants to sit back, because he was very defensive in the first game, I was like, I'm going to call his bluff here. Or bluff, I don't know if it's a bluff. I'm just going to answer his strategy. If he goes defensive again, I'm going to be ready. I have 2 cannons, and yes, 2 Hellblaster volley guns. And then I've got a cheap line of swordsmen, so I've got crap infantry, but the dwarves don't really have real good offensive units, so I was like, you know what, I can get the cheap infantry and risk it. And then out here on the flanks, I've got 2 grenade launcher outriders and 2 regular outriders to bide my time with. But the goal here was I'm going to buy range supremacy. My opponent stays very aggressive with these gyrocopters and the brimstone gun. He needs to retreat. But if he retreats, my cannons are just going to shoot his cannons too. And his cannons right now are shooting at Balthasar. He really needs to move forward and start taking shots at my cannons while they're preoccupied. If he moves forward and starts shooting my cannons, he can then bring his gyrocopters in and try and do some damage. But he's got a serious threat here in these volley guns. They can cause a lot of damage to his key infantry. So let's look at his line. He's got 5 miners with blasting charges. So he's hoping basically that any charge is just going to get so disrupted and pounded by blasting charges that it'll be ineffective. A lot of dwarf players like this strategy. It's basically an area of denial in front of their line. They're going to have this big area of denial that they can control. On the flanks, he's got iron breakers for more of the same. Again, area of denial and a strong unit to hold up the flank. And in the very back, he's got some high damage units with these hammers. And then again, more miners for protection. He's sporting Belagar, which is just a very tanky lord, right? Belagar is just going to be hard to kill. It's going to be one of his best abilities. He deals a ton of damage. It's not specifically armor piercing, but like I said, he's just going to be hard to kill. So anyway, I win the fight against his gyrocopters because he stayed way too aggressive with them for way too long. I had other tools to use against his gyrocopters if needed to, because I had these outriders, and I will finish them with it. But now he's going to have to move forward and use his cannons. Now, dwarf cannons are more accurate than the Empire cannons, and they can win in a one-on-one artillery duel. I do think they may cost a hair more, though I could be wrong. So I'm going to start firing at his cannons. He's going to move into range of mine. I'm going to, again, focus 1 unit at a time so that we can kill his cannons. If I kill his cannons, I can pretty easily win this battle. I say that. If I kill his cannons, which, again, if I were him right now, I would rush forward. Take everything and rush forward. My swordsmen are terrible. You have good infantry. Yes, I'll kill your cannons. But if you rush forward, artillery can't retreat very quickly. I really think he needs to rush forward, try and kill my sword line with his top-tier infantry. So come straight in with the top-tier infantry, spread out wide, miners around the flanks as much as possible, and then he should be able to create a break in the center pretty quickly and try and take advantage of it. His problem is he's going to be getting harassed by all this, but I mean, if he loses the cannon duel, he's just going to take a lot of damage from the Hellblaster volley guns, and he is going to lose the cannon duel at this point because I got first shots on him, even though, again, his is better, but I've been shooting longer, and he had to move into range because he was concerned of my range. So he is going to lose this fight. But he wants to take it. He wants to skirmish. So in the process of skirmishing, I'm going to move up these outriders, and I'm going to start shooting hammerers. His miners in the back don't have blasting charges, so he's not able to really keep me at bay here. His hammers are a high-value target. Any damage I can do to them now would be better. And these hammers over here are going to take a bunch of grenade launcher shots. I'm going to let him push out here and get close to me, but I'm not going to let him catch me. Balthasar, I went ahead and used some Golden Hounds here. I really kind of just wish I had the bombardment, though. I'm not sure it would do any better, but that unit was pretty vulnerable to the Golden Hounds since it was getting all shot up. So it did some damage. We've got that unit of hammers down almost half. So we're going to split up, stay away from his miners. They can't catch us. 1 cannon down. I'm still targeting it which was a mistake. I switched my target over here. My Hellblaster guns, I moved back initially because he started shooting them with his cannon, and these were way too valuable to lose early. I need these to do the damage to his tanky infantry, or else I might lose the fight. Again, you can see the quality of the dwarf cannons here. They've knocked me down to 1 gun. So dwarf cannon's definitely a high quality unit in terms of its accuracy. I got lucky there and destroyed one of his guns too. So that will help me immensely to finish this fight. Again, I'm going to use some more magic just to kind of do some damage to these guys. The Golden Hounds are better when there's a blob, but, you know, my opponent's sitting back, and I just want to take advantage of anything I can. That really wasn't worth it in the end, but I just wanted to try it. So, as he's going to sit back, I just want to cause as much damage to him as possible. Outriders targeting the hammer still. I can shoot from the top of the hill down here. He turns his cannon around to fire on my Outriders because it's frustrating for him. But if he turns his cannon, he's going to continue to take fire from my cannon. Again, you can see the Empire cannon's not terribly accurate here. I do believe the Dwarf cannon's a little more accurate. Though, the interesting thing is the Empire cannon... I thought these guys got a bonus versus large. Did they not? I want to say, I thought the cannons had gotten a bonus versus large. Maybe they didn't. Probably a good thing they didn't. I guess it'd be super effective against large units. But in any case, this is basically a giant skirmish battle. And that's what I wanted it to be here. So again, this was my Balthasar army, specifically modified for this opponent. Because my first one, again, was focused around a lot of missile units that just turned out bad for me. Error, why didn't you show that one? Again, I'm not trying to hide stuff. You all know I lose battles. Just wanted to show you how it works out for the better here. And then the other one I really did mean to keep and show you. That way it would have been one of me losing to the player, one of me beating the player. But yeah, thought I had it saved. I just didn't. I'm going to go ahead and use what do you call it? The final transmutation, sorry, the upgraded version. I just wanted to see how much damage it would do to Belegar, because he's got resistance to magic. Actually does decent damage to these miners as well. That is a lot of magic. I think it's 28 winds of magic I had to burn there. Damage is maybe a 6th or something like that. 5th, 6th, something like that of Belegar's health. So he's obviously fairly resistant to that. But again, I can damage him. Why not? That's what I'm doing at this point. I moved up my volley guns. I expected him to move forward at this point because my volley guns are out in front of my army, and I'm targeting his most expensive infantry with the volley guns. So I kind of either expected him to close the distance or to try and retreat out of range of the volley guns, but he's running out of ranged options. His cannon is almost dead. And my cannon is in good health over here because he got distracted a few times. You see the volley gun, it targets weird. It's kind of like in Shogun 2, the Gatling guns. It always targets like the very edge of the unit formation. They really need to fix the volley gun. It's not a bad gun. It would be a whole lot better if it would just actually target the center of a unit, but it won't. It always targets the edge of a unit. So just be aware of that with the volley gun. So the positioning of it and how you fire it can potentially see. It's aiming just for the very edge of this unit. I don't understand that. Creative Assembly really needs to fix it. I might send him an email at some point too and tell him, hey, next time you patch, why don't you take a look at that? See if you can fix that. Like, why do they target the edge of the unit? Because this would actually be a really effective artillery piece if it would target the center of the unit and actually get you some hits. Because obviously the enemy is going to close the distance very quickly. See how much these blasting charges just cause absurd damage. They've taken half the health off of my Sigmar's Sons, which is an unbreakable unit, right? I mean, it takes a ton of health off of them. Some of my swordsmen are able to get into combat, though, relatively unharmed. He kept his elite infantry back, which at this point, I mean, why? Protect the cannon that's about to die? I mean, you definitely don't want to do that. So he threw in all of his units up here, which isn't helping his case here. So again, I think my opponent's best option in this battle was immediately realizing, you know what? I either, one, sit here and do the damage I can to key units with my cannons before mine die and then rush, or I just rush and potentially sacrifice the cannons, because if he closes the distance with me and wins, but the problem is his miners really aren't good against swordsmen. They're one of the few dwarf units that will just straight up lose to the swordsmen. They're not very good. Miners have some armor piercing, but swords don't have a lot of armor, and there's a lot more swordsmen, and they have a decent melee attack. Yeah, miners have a fair amount of armor, but it's not a great unit for what he needs it to be right there. We're going to continue to target the Peak Gate Guard, because it's a very valuable unit, and we've been pretty successful in it. I'm going to bring the Outriders up, and we'll keep firing into the flank. These Nordgrimling's Iron Breakers have a shield. I am firing into their unshielded flank, but still. In any case, he's going to admit defeat at that point. So there's an example of where a Gelt army went okay for me, because I had an idea what my opponent was going to pick from a previous battle. So I would say another thing too is when you're playing online and you're going to play the same person a couple of times in a row, you usually want to vary up your tactics quite a bit. Because otherwise they might turn around and kind of hard counter you like I did here, because I had a pretty good feeling my opponent was going to try the same thing because it worked for him last time, right? People get into a mode where it's like, hey, if it worked for me last time, it's probably going to work good next time. That might be the case. They may have something that they like or they're comfortable with, and it works good most of the time. But if you make yourself too predictable, it's also a vulnerability, especially for a faction like the Empire, because the Empire has a lot of options. It's one of the benefits. They're not like a crazy, crazy strong faction, but they have a lot of options. They can do a little bit of everything pretty well. And so you just got to watch out for them, because they have so much different magic. They have a few different options for lords. And then when you think it's really the support units, steam tanks, handguns, artillery. They've got quite a bit of artillery. Key units like Luminarchs. I mean, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with the Empire, so that's why you kind of have to be careful, you know, if you're predictable and someone picks the Empire, I would say you definitely got to watch out, because they may have your number if you've been predictable. Hey, thanks to Korith. He played me a fun game. Again, he beat me in the first game. He did a good job. And I hope he's enjoying the game. Appreciate him watching the battles. It was fun to play against him. I do like that he's given some Clan Angren love here with Belegar Iron Hammer and all the different miners and stuff. It's cool. I like the Dwarves are a cool faction. They're actually still probably one of my favorite factions in campaign. They're not one of my favorite ones to play online, but they're definitely one of my favorites in campaign. They're stupid strong in campaign, especially in the early game with Quarrelers. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this. Appreciate MSI sponsoring the channel. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. There'll be more videos. I'm cranking them out. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you soon.